Shadows, the horror movie heroes, by Clouds. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 17, Control. Hitoshi got back to the apartment first, which was understandable, considering that Izuku had to drop off the bombs at a safe location. He sighed and sat down to browse some of Izuku's notebooks. The plan was simple as far as it went, but it involved a lot of watching and waiting for the other villains to make a move, which unfortunately wouldn't be happening until later tonight. Right now, pretty much everyone was either licking their wounds or celebrating their successes, and the heroes were too busy setting up their agency to actively pursue any of the villains. That would probably change tomorrow, but he and Izuku had the rest of the afternoon to do, well, whatever they wanted, really. The door opened and Izuku smiled as he walked in. Hello, how did it go? The group we picked just assumed I was an info broker. The corner of Hitoshi's mouth twitched upwards. I don't think they even thought I was a villain, just another part of the exercise. Perfect. Izuku nodded. That means we're still off the radar. I had to kill a guard at the labs, so unfortunately they'll know that somebody broke in, but I didn't leave anything that links it to us. Good. Hitoshi flipped through another notebook. Any plans for this afternoon, or just wait until the cover of darkness to see what strings we need to pull? Izuku shrugged and pulled out his laptop. I need to send a few emails real quick. I need to establish a pattern of communication with them, so they don't have any reason to be suspicious when Nedzu starts giving them tips tomorrow. Other than that, yeah, we're pretty much free. Any ideas? Hitoshi thought for a moment. I've been thinking about Jiro. Didn't she say her quirk had something to do with enhancing her hearing? Yeah, Izuku rubbed his chin thoughtfully, but then from what we saw earlier, it almost seems like yours. It's possible she was just lying, Hitoshi suggested, if her quirk's like, well, I've lied about my quirk plenty of times, but the truth always comes out eventually. It's also weird how little quirk control she has, Izuku thought out loud. She doesn't seem to have experimented with it at all. Hitoshi grimaced. Actually, that's pretty common with mind control quirks. Nobody wants to volunteer to help a future villain. Izuku grimaced too. Oh, right. Yeah, Hitoshi sighed. I was thinking that she did help us pick out our outfits. Maybe we should return the favor with a few tips. I know we're planning on working alone, but it'll be useful to have allies for the first few days. Izuku nodded. Let me just finish this email and I'll track her down. Mirio smiled as they finished setting up their mock hero agency. He knew it was just an exercise, and they'd all done internships and work studies before, but it was still cool that the teachers were letting them loose on this. Before, they always had someone looking after them and holding their hands, but right now, it was just them against the villains, just like it would be for real someday. It was exhilarating. Amajiki didn't feel the same way. Now that the groceries for the week were put away, he was hiding in the pantry while Nejire waited on the counter, swinging her legs. Oh, come on, Amajiki, cheer up. We won our fight. The villains ran away, Amajiki said piteously, his voice half muffled by the door. If they hadn't, we could have lost. Nah, they ran because they knew we were too strong for them to beat. Mirio flexed. We're going to do great. Just you wait and see. The door opened and Amajiki poked his head out as two of their classmates walked in. Shigeru Shin and Akane Kohaku had both transferred from the support course last year, so they were the ones who had been assigned to set up all the techie stuff like the agency's command center. When he saw them, Amajiki's eyes widened and he slammed the pantry door closed. Oh no, we're being hacked. Kohaku rolled her eyes, the literal copper wires that made up both her hair and her quirk bouncing as she shook her head. Why do you always jump to the worst conclusions, Tamaki? We're not being hacked. Amajiki poked his head out again. We're not? Of course not, silly. Nejire giggled and hopped off the counter. These people aren't real villains or anything. Mirio nodded in agreement. So, what's up? Nedzu sent us a message, Shin said. He was a bald boy with pointed ears whose quirk let him find any object he'd touched. We were going around and collecting everyone who's here so we can read it together. The three of them followed their classmates to the big room they'd set up as their base of operations. Pretty much all of their classmates were there by now, sitting around the table, with the exception of a handful who were still out on patrol. Shindo, a kid with an earthquake quirk who had transferred from another hero school, looked around the table and frowned. Hey, has anyone seen Hanzu? I thought he was supposed to be back from patrol by now. Last I heard, he was helping a lost kid, Cami, another transfer student, said. But that was a couple hours ago, so he should totally be back soon. Shindo shrugged. He can read it when he comes back. The rest of us are curious now. Fine, let's just do this. Kohaku projected Nedzu's email up on the wall. Now pay attention, everyone. Dear students, congratulations on surviving the first day of the exercise. The other faculty and I are proud of your efforts thus far and are looking forward to seeing how you stop the villains in the coming days. Good luck. Nedzu, UA Principal. Kyoka had no idea what she was doing, but she wasn't about to admit that. So what if One for All had given her an entirely new ability that she hadn't even considered? That didn't mean she had to freak out much. Now that she had a minute to relax, the significance of what she'd just done was hitting her like a truck. She'd just controlled people, like straight up played their emotions like a guitar. It was as cool as it was terrifying, and now she had less than a week to master her new ability, all while pretending to be a villain, going after objectives, and somehow making All Might and Gran Torino proud. Wonderful. She had currently found an empty apartment to hide in. It didn't have any furniture, but it didn't have any neighbors either, which meant that there was nobody around to turn her in. She had learned her lesson about that the hard way. She was also getting hungry, but even with her new ability, getting groceries would be a challenge. So far, every time she'd used her emotion control, she'd ended up having to make a run for it, and that was going to be fairly difficult with a bunch of bags. The speakers had been hard enough. She did not want to try that with eggs. She froze when she heard footsteps out on her balcony. Nobody even knew she was here, and she couldn't think of any other reasons that someone would be traipsing across balconies. Was it a hero coming to arrest her? She got into a fighting stance and stared down the curtains until they started moving, and then stabbed blindly with her earphone jacks. Whoever was on the other side of the curtain grabbed them both and started wrapping them around his hand as he walked into the room. Midoriya was grinning as he emerged from the curtain. So you could hear us coming. I was starting to wonder if you'd lied about your quirk. Kyoka tried to yank her earphone jacks out of Midoriya's grasp, but he was holding on tight. Shinso just looked bored as he pushed aside the curtain and walked inside. Aw, is that any way to greet your old friend? Kyoka narrowed her eyes suspiciously. I thought you said we were enemies during this exercise. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean we can't form alliances, Midoriya said, taking a closer look at her earphone jacks. For example, we don't want to get on the wrong end of these, and you need help with quirk control. Kyoka stopped. How did you know that? We know a lot of things. Shinso gave her a teasing smile. So, new quirk development, or did you just not practice? Kyoka raised her chin stubbornly. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Suddenly, her brain went foggy, and Shinso's smile went wide. Relax. All the tension left her body before she even had a chance to realize what was happening. Midoriya let go of her earphone jacks, and he and Shinso exchanged knowing glances. It was only a few seconds, and then her brain cleared as Shinso dropped his control. I'm talking about that? Shinso looked almost nervous, but covered it with a small smirk. Although, I'm betting yours works a little differently. You... Kyoka was a little breathless. You can control people too. And you... need help figuring out how to do that better. Midoriya said, so what do you say? Truce? Kyoka frowned. What do you get out of it? Shinso rolled his eyes. Izuku really likes quirks. Midoriya chuckled awkwardly. Guilty. I just really want to know more about how your quirk works. Jiro sighed. You and me both. End of chapter.